Hello, Elizabeth. Thank you very much for being here with us at CAPERmed. As you know, because we told you, here at CAPERmed, we're trying to bring Mediterranean people together, people who work on air pollution and climate change, with the goal to write up a common proposal and also to create a coordinated network, which would also include a coordinated network of experimental sites. And we know that you have a big deal of experience on this from the nutrient network. So we would love to hear from you about your experience with this. And so if you could please tell us a little bit about the nutrient network and also how you came up with that idea and how you decided to do it and why. So please tell us about it because we really want to know.
Yes, thank you for calling and for chatting about this. It's what you guys are doing is really exciting, and I'm looking forward to hearing as it develops. So, Nutrient Network began with a group of us doing meta-analysis. So we were bringing together single-site experimental data and analyzing that using meta-analysis. Meta-analysis is a great tool, as are single-site experiments, but meta-analysis has the limitation that while you can look at main effects, it's very difficult to look at interactions among factors. And that was, the results that we were getting from meta-analysis were very exciting, but also a bit frustrating to us because we wanted to dig in and to understand the contingencies. So for example, when diversity increases with nutrient addition at one site and decreases with nutrient addition at another, we wanted to understand why. And that's not something that you can really effectively do using meta-analysis. And we thought, well, why don't we shift our perspective? We're all single site experimentalists, but if we shift our perspective and have the site then become the replicate, we all do exactly the same experimental treatments at each site, then we can begin to understand and the causality and dig into the interactions among factors that can occur. So for example, nitrogen and phosphorus causing different effects together or alone, and potentially different effects at different sites. Where we began, that was the genesis of the network, was frustration really with meta-analysis and needing a new tool, a new approach for answering those questions.
Okay, so how did you do it then? How did you start exactly?
Honestly, the beginning of our network was our group sitting around a table at the National Center for Ecological Analysis and Synthesis during a break time, drinking coffee and complaining about how other scientists all did their science differently and why didn't all scientists do their studies the same way. And all of a sudden we thought, oh wait, we're scientists. We should do this. We should be the ones to just begin. Let's try this. And we were drawing from our experiences. Each of those people around the table had been involved in long-term experimental research, single-site experiments. There were a few groups that were beginning long-term observational data collection, coordinated across sites. And we brought those ideas together to create a new vision, to create a network of sites where we're all applying the same experimental treatments. So that was the beginning of our network. And then we wrote a letter to our friends just describing what we were doing. And as one of the people who's currently in the network said, it went viral. It went out and people it to their collaborators and friends around the world. And it went from about 6 or 8 sites as our original vision, just around North America, the people sitting around the table at the time. And it's grown at this point to nearly 100 sites on all continents except Antarctica. So it really has, to me, what that indicates is it's clearly filling a need, a desire of scientists to answer questions that we haven't been able to answer before. So.
Oh, sounds great. What do you think was the key to the great success? And also, what do you think is the main advantage? You've named so many advantages, but what would be for you the main advantage of having something like NatNet?
Yeah. In terms of the success, I think there are many factors involved, but I do think that in retrospect, it indicates to me that there was a need and a desire on the part of scientists. We are not funded at the site scale, so every one of those scientists is bringing their own passion to the table. I think another part of it, and again, sort of unintentional, I was an assistant professor, some of the other people around the table were postdocs. We had no money and we had no time. So we designed a project that was relatively low in terms of expense to any one investigator and in terms of time commitment. And I think what that's done in retrospect has allowed people from places where science is very poorly funded to also participate in global scale research. And so it's been a really big benefit to us to have a project that was relatively low investment on the part of any one person to generate a really just unparalleled data set. So that was the first half of what you asked. The second is, in terms of advantages, I would say the first is the scientific data. I get up in the morning so excited about these data. Exactly replicated experimental treatments where everyone in grasslands from Australia to central China to, the Western Ghats in India, Tanzania, South Africa, and North America, we've got all of us applying exactly the same treatments so that we can then understand under what conditions do those treatments lead to the same or different outcomes for the biological organisms. So that's the first biggest benefit, I would say. In addition, I would say the people. I count myself as one of the luckiest people in the world to get to work with passionate people from all over the world who deeply care about projecting global change and biodiversity and answering some of these questions we haven't yet answered. I don't have funding for them. These people around the world are engaged in this because of their passion and they're just making it happen. So it's all of the yes people around the world that I get to meet and interact with. And the science itself it's just so much better because of all of these different perspectives. So I would count those as the advantages.
Oh, yeah, that's amazing. And in fact, that's something that I was going to ask you. NatNet is amazing from the scientific point of view, but it also sounds really, really amazing from the personal point of view. And you guys, I think that you guys make it feel like that. Like you seem so passionate about it. And I guess that you also get that, right?
Yeah, from a personal end, I just feel so lucky that I'm meeting people who are contacting me and they turn out to be people that I have shared passion and vision. And, there's so much in common already. And the differences fall away to a great extent because we have a common mission. And it's super exciting to me. So I would say the personal and professional come together for me there. 200 people around the world where I'd be thrilled to go out and have a beer and chat and talk about science. And we do, when we have the meetings in person, that's what we do. We have the downtime where we build that trust and build that community, and the up times where we're standing at a whiteboard and having that, wonderful tension of ideas. So it's an incredible opportunity to meet and interact with people, both in person and over electronic devices.
And I can testify that because I've been there. So I don't know if someone has asked you before this question already, but you guys have been so successful. But if you had to do it again, you hadn't done it before, and now they told you, okay, would you do it again? Would you?
Yeah, I would. In fact, in a way we are. When we set up NatNet, we originally envisioned a 10-year timeline. And I think that was a big advantage to us to say at 10 years, we will decide if we're done. We will decide if we're going to continue in the same direction, just keep doing what we're doing, or whether we will go a different direction. And we're at 10 years right now from that initial set of data collection. And so we're doing some real reflection within the network and thinking about, will we continue? What will that look like? Most people in the network really feel like they want to continue. This is something very exciting. And now we're considering, okay, well, we're going to continue. What will that look like? And that's where we are right now. So I would say the answer is yes, and we're doing it right now.
That's a really good answer. And so, if you had to start over again from the beginning, what would you exactly the same way? And is there something that you would do differently?
Yeah. In terms of the things that I would do differently, which I think is the shorter list, only serendipitously, I feel really lucky that we made some good choices by accident. The things that I would change first is a much earlier focus on data and metadata. How will we store it? Needing to think about the data as a very long-term data set. What will that look like? How will we share that with the community? It's a very complicated problem, and we're in conversation right now with computer scientists because it's not a problem that they've dealt with either. It's the structure of the data set is very different from single site data, where you add on temporally. This is a data set where any site can begin at year 0 and start. So we can't just serve out to the community a, observational data set that's changing. So that's been very complicated, and I wish that we had realized that problem earlier, but here we are. Hopefully others can learn from that. The other thing is getting funding for a data manager, and for me, we've chosen to go with a half-time postdoc, half-time data manager, because then the person is deeply invested in that data, and the quality of the data has been extremely high. But getting funding for that position in perpetuity, or at least as long as the network lasts, is another thing that I wish that we had had earlier, but it's something that I am doing everything in my power to keep that position funded for this network, because that network continuity of data and quality of data really stems from having someone who's deeply invested in the data managing it. So those are the two things that I think I would modify that I can think of right now. In terms of things that I would keep, first, the data manager, and second, the in-person meetings. I think that they are so important for the trust and the common mission and the formal and informal communication that needs to happen to make the network move forward and really grow intellectually. So I would say that one is something that I'm really glad that I've managed to fund, and I'm working very hard to maintain that, because I think that bringing people into one place in spite of the carbon footprint associated with that is unparalleled in terms of what it does for the network as a group and having an identity. I think the other thing that I would definitely keep is our initial focus on what was our core goal. And for us, for me, for this group, it was having exactly identical treatments and exactly identical data. Other networks have different foci, but for us, that's where I feel like the strength of this network lies. And so it helps me to have that in front and center in my mind when people ask questions like, well, do I have to build the fence that way? Or can I use a different kind of nutrient? It really helps me to say, no. And I'm not that good. I want to accommodate people. So that's really been a power of the network, I think, is to have those data. And so with the knowledge of the analyses that we can do because we have that, it's allowed me to focus on the treatments and the standardized data. I think also having the fixed timeline where we decided that we would just reflect at 10 years. even if we continue doing exactly what we've been doing, it will be very intentional. And I think that's another thing that has worked very well. And with unintentional, we all just thought, well, we'll be old by then.
No, it all sounds really good, and I think that really, really good advices, and I think we're gonna use them hopefully well. And so, the last thing that I would like to ask you is if you could just leave a message for our CAPERmed participants, if you could just say something to them, whatever you think.
Yeah.
We'll come to you.
Good luck, and I can't wait to read your papers. And make sure that you meet and find those common threads. Make sure you get together to keep people moving in the same direction. Recognize that you have a common mission and focus on that. And I think that great things will come from your network, and I can't wait to know what they are.
Wow. Thank you very much, Elizabeth, for your words. They're really appreciated. So in the name of me and the organizing committee and all the CAPERmed participants, we really want to thank you for being here with us. And of course, we'll let you know, we'll keep you in the loop. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.